In an age where we get so many remakes today, and I mean so many of them, it was only inevitable that we would have a remake to this movie. And so many people would be like, why? Not because so many people idolize the original film, but rather, how dumb can you make it be? But with who's involved in this, I'm interested to see what this film could be. I really am.
People seem a little aggressive around here.
Is that one a friend of yours?
No, I just broke his arm.
Roadhouse 2024 is directed by Doug Liman with a screenplay by Anthony Bagarozzi and Charles Mondry, and a story by Anthony Bagarozzi, Charles Mondry, and David Lee Henry. The film stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Daniela Melchoir, Billy Magnus, Jessica Williams, Joaquim de Almeida, and Conor McGregor. According to IMDb's plot synopsis, ex-UFC fighter Dalton takes a job as a bouncer at Florida Key Roadhouse, only to discover that this paradise is not all it seems. When I saw the trailer for this movie, and I knew that this movie was happening before the trailer even dropped, but when I saw the trailer, I got curious to see what this movie could be, which got me to watch the original before watching this remake. So, hey, at least I get to kill two birds with one stone, so that's only natural with that. So, after watching the original, I was curious to see what this remake would be. And I know so many people groan and scoff at the ideas of remakes. I get it. I understand there's way too many of them today. But I always give chances to whoever's involved in the filmmaking. So that's why I was willing to give this a chance, because Doug Liman is a really accomplished director himself. So having watched this, I could say I think I prefer this over the original. And yes, that may surprise a lot of you, but for me, the film is a step above the original. I'll say that. But I actually would watch this over the '89 film. Though there are some problems. I'm not saying this movie's perfect. I still enjoyed the film. Here are now some of the positives that I found with the movie. The performances are exciting. Jake Gyllenhaal is fun as Dalton, and he is jacked as all hell. I mean, I think this is the most I've ever seen him jacked. I could be wrong, but I, myself, having appreciated Jake Gyllenhaal, the guy can really get into shape when he has to. But going back to the film, unlike Swayze's Dalton, Gyllenhaal's Dalton is a down on his luck and battered guy who reluctantly takes the bouncer position. Because in the original, that was already his profession. He was already a professional as a bouncer. Whereas this, he's an ex-UFC fighter just trying to get by with money. That is a little bit different, where I'm like, you know what, I can separate these two Daltons and not have to compare and contrast one another. But like Swayze, Gyllenhaal brings the charisma and badass nature to his Dalton, just like how Swayze did with his. Just, I would say, a little bit more brutal than before. I think this movie is more violent than the original. Compare and contrast each other, I do think that this one's actually more brutal than the original film. Gyllenhaal is excellent as Dalton in the film. Daniela Melchoir is delightful as Ellie, Dalton's love interest in this film. Unlike Kelly Lynch's love interest in the original, Ellie is very sweet and very laid back throughout the film. And I appreciate the fact that she has more to do with the plot than the original's love interest, because I just felt like they kind of threw that in there for the sake of, well, we just need a love interest for the movie. Here, they give her a reason why she is there and why she's integral to the plot. But both Gyllenhaal and Melchoir have great chemistry with each other, and I bought their relationship. I did. And I was really appreciative of their dynamic together in the film, very much so. Billy Magnus is entertaining as Ben Brandt, the main antagonist of the movie, which essentially Magnus is playing Brandt as a rich asshole and is smug about it. But it's what makes Magnus fun to watch. I do have gripes with characters in this movie, but overall, Magnus still plays what this character is, a rich, snobby asshole, through and through, and I think he does it very well and very convincingly. Jessica Williams is good as Frankie, the Roadhouse owner. Unlike the owner of the Double Deuce, because let me tell you, like I said in my original review, none of the side characters are interesting to me, and the Double Deuce owner, I can't even remember his name because he hardly stood out. There was no personality to him. So with Frankie, she has personality and a backstory. There's a reason why she holds so dearly to this roadhouse and why she is trying to fend off against Billy Magnus and his cronies the entire time. And while Williams just brings energy to the role, she just gives that no shit and just, hard as nails Roadhouse owner that she will do anything to defend this place. And so, yeah, it was just great to see that the owner, at the very least, has reasoning as well as a motivation for what she is doing. That is an improvement. McGregor is fine as Knox. I know that this is his theatrical debut, but he is the secondary villain. I understand that the marketing could say that he's the main antagonist. He's not really. He's the second main antagonist. He's the one that goes up against Gyllenhaal. Magnus is, but he's not the intimidating one. McGregor is. While very over the top and very much like him in so many ways, and from what I hear in real life, it doesn't surprise me. McGregor is intimidating when he goes against Gyllenhaal. I can buy these two fighting each other, and them being in good shape, it makes me buy their fighting all the more because they are really brutal and efficient fighters. Also, Arturo Castro is funny as Mo, who is one of Brandt's hired goons. He's the only goon in this movie that has any sort of personality and any sort of humor to the film that I just found to be a welcome addition to, because it's just funny to see this guy who seems very nice, but yet he's joining these assholes for the sake of just having people around. But yeah, he's just so nice about even when he gets his ass beat or what he's doing, and he's not one to go after revenge. He's like, okay, I got my ass beat, alright. So, yeah, I did appreciate him. The direction is exciting. Director Doug Liman fuses excitement and frantic energy to the film. Liman puts his own twist on the movie rather than making a generic remake. I really think that this doesn't feel like a retelling of the original. This feels like a reimagining more than anything. I don't see this as trying to be like a compare and contrast. It doesn't feel like it is a beat by beat retelling of the original. It feels like its own, whilst also still echoing of the parts from the original movie into this film. So it was nice to see where Doug Liman tries to balance out a little bit of that nostalgia parts into the film from the original, but make it a little bit so that way it's not a stop and you need to hear this moment that has to echo back to the original. So yeah, I was really happy to see him try to be a little bit different with this film. The action sequences are brutal. Each punch and kick looks painful and engaging. It makes for a bloody fun time. The fights in this, they look painful. They look excruciatingly painful. Especially in the trailer where Jake Gyllenhaal slaps all of Brandt's goons. That even looks painful. And it is really good to see how violent they were willing to push this with regards to how brutal that these fights can be. Because in the original, that was the charm of it, but it still is brought into here, and it really works really well. Especially that end fight between Dalton and Knox. I thought that was a really good knockout fight. Dragged out fight, rather, for the film. The music is amazing. Christoph Beck keeps the rock music flowing and entertaining throughout. Also, the licensed music works very well into the movie. I'm glad that they still keep that, because if somebody were to tell me that they needed to change the music for this, I would look at them and be like, you are out of your goddamn mind, because you cannot change the music from that original to something else. Glad that they kept that same momentum, and again, that licensed music, it's effective. It works very well, and it plays out well. The cinematography is stellar. Cinematographer Henry Braham makes a chaotic and beautiful looking movie. From capturing the Florida Keys to the fights, it makes for an enthralling time. The look of this movie with regards to the Florida Keys, it makes Florida look gorgeous. And that's hard to say that today, but yes, it does make Florida look beautiful to be at. And the fights, the way the camera works into these fight scenes is incredible. Especially one where you'll sometimes switch to Dalton's POV and you get to see him get his ass beat. So it was just nice to see a little bit of camera movement in this that felt different and felt unique than most other remakes with action sequences usually are today. The production is amazing. MGM and Amazon put a lot of money into a movie that was supposed to be in theaters before being put on Prime, which is disappointing, and that's actually why Doug Liman didn't promote this movie, is because he was promised a theatrical release, and unfortunately that never happened, and so he boycotted the film. He wanted it to be in theaters instead of Amazon Prime, which I agree. I do think that it is disappointing that this movie had to be on Prime instead of in the theaters, because I think it would have been a fun time to go watch it on the big screen. But nevertheless, from the sets to locations, the money is there. It is of high quality. You could tell that this movie truly was supposed to be made for theaters. And so for this to be dumped on to Prime, it is Like I said, very disappointing to see that. But hey, at least the money's there. At least the quality is there. The story is well done. Seeing the film try to be a little bit more grounded works well, and it feels different from the original movie. Like I said, it doesn't feel like a retelling, it feels like a reimagining, and it feels different enough to where it could stand on its own and not have to constantly feel like it is trying to recapture whatever the magic was in the original, which was dumbness. But we'll get into that in a little bit. And while I do have my criticism with the second half of the movie, I do think that I do give it props for, at the very least, trying to be a little bit more different than what the original movie was. While there is plenty to enjoy, there are some issues with the film that I found to be a problem. Here are some of the negatives. I think the tone becomes too crazy, and I feel like it's very conflicted with itself, because the moment I feel like Knox shows up, and I'm not blaming Conor McGregor, but I just feel like the moment this character shows up, and it's almost like he's like a double-edged sword, the tone quickly changes from being grounded to insane. I mean, it was like on a dime. It switches from being a more grounded and bloodier film to now just a wacky, cartoonish level like how the original movie was. And I just feel like it kind of goes against with what it was in the beginning to being something completely different and trying so hard to be like that original with its ending that I just found it. And I don't find the ending to be terrible. I don't find the second half of the movie to be terrible. It's just, it does feel like, it feels like a whiplash, because it just went from being this more grounded take on Roadhouse to now just trying to be an outlandish cartoonish version of Roadhouse, or trying to be like how the original Roadhouse was in that regard. The villains are one note. Though the performances are fun, the villains are just not very interesting. There's just not much to them, which is, I think, the most disappointing part. Again, they are really well performed, and they are fun to watch, but I was hoping that there could have been more, and I just feel like there just wasn't. The editing is all over the place. Whenever the fights go down, I do think that the editing is indecisive. Sometimes the editing will be quick cutting, and other times it'll be elongating the fights, continuously with one shot almost, that it becomes frustrating, because I just don't think that there is a consistent editing choice that is concrete and solid. It feels like we'll do some quick cuts here, and then we'll do a long take here. And I wish that there was a more smoother way that editing could have worked into the film, rather than quickly flurrying through hands and quick cut editing, or sometimes elongating those fights. Roadhouse 2024 is a blast. It is a remake that is not a straight up retelling. It is a reimagining, and I'm glad that it is. Besides its shortcomings, I had a fun time watching this. If you get a chance to watch this, the original is also up there. If you want, go check it out. And if after watching that, I highly recommend watching this remake. So yeah, I'm going to give Roadhouse 2024 a 7 out of 10. I think that this is one that some people will find enjoyment out. I can't say that for fans of the original Roadhouse, but for newcomers, if you watch the original and you weren't like super amazed by it, you'll watch this and walk away being like, you know what? I think I prefer this one, because I did. So I will now get into my reviews for the Ghostbusters series. So yeah, look forward to those reviews and other movie TV show reviews coming soon.